Well, Bockfest is all centered around beer, Bock beer specifically. So, we were one of the biggest brewing centers in the country pre-prohibition, and we still have a very proud brewing tradition. But for a long time, that had kind of was slowly receding and receding, like it was across the country. And one of our last local breweries, Hudapult Shaneling, in 1992, as with their Christian Moorline beer brand, and that was their kind of better beer at the time. That was even before the craft beer movement. So it was known as kind of the better beer movement. That was their flagship. It was a premium beer celebrating Cincinnati's brewing heritage and a really good beer. Well, they brought out, they created a new Bock beer for spring. And they wanted a way to celebrate that and kind of harken back to those traditions. So Bockfest, traditionally, Bock beers are a seasonal beer. They're always released during the Lenten fasting time. And so breweries would always release their Bock beers at the same time in the spring. And so they took that idea and released Christian Moorline Bock beer in 1992. And they partnered with ARNOLD'S, and they partnered with the merchants on Main Street and over the Rhine to create a festival to celebrate that beer. And that's where it all started. And, we started with a small parade and a bunch of diehards, and we've grown it into this 3-day plus festival of all things great Bock beer and spring and history and running and everything else.
Everything Cincinnati. Just
Yes.
to go back in history a little bit, for those who may not know, why is Cincinnati so connected with beer?
So Cincinnati, we were really, it boils down to the Germans, the German immigrants who made their way here in the 1840s and 1850s. Cincinnati was one of those cities where they landed in great numbers. And over the Rhine and downtown, that's where the city was growing at the time, and that's where they landed. In fact, that's where our neighborhood's name came from. You crossed over the Miami and Erie Canal, which they nicknamed the Rhine River, into this little Germany, this little Deutschland. And so they brought their love of lager beer with them. And we produced a lot of beer because we consumed a lot of beer here. We drank over 40 gallons of beer for every man, woman, and child, which is 2.5 times the national average. And so you needed a lot of breweries to create all that beer. And so Cincinnati was one of those big brewing cities before Prohibition, sending beer not only to thirsty Cincinnatians, but literally around the globe. Cincinnati beer was synonymous with good quality beer. It was almost a trademark in and of itself. And that beer was really permeated every part of the city's social life and political life and economic life. It was really the lifeblood of the neighborhood in the city before Prohibition. And as I mentioned, that Bock beer was just one of those pieces of that beer culture here.
As I mentioned, it is going to be Bockfest 5K on the 5th, but that is just part of the entire weekend. This was one of the last events that we had in 2020 because it was a week, maybe 2 weeks, not quite 2 weeks after that everything shut down. What was it like not being able to have Bockfest?
Yeah, it was very frustrating. Bockfest, it's such a fun festival, so many reasons. It's always in springtime. We're the first weekend of March, so sometimes we're fighting, still dodging snow. But it's one of the things it celebrates is the coming of spring. So it's the first big festival of the year, the first outdoor festival of the year, and it's just always so positive. People are excited to be out after being cooped up all year, and in 21. Doubly, triply, quadruply so that everybody had been cooped up literally for a year. And so the fact that we weren't able to really do a proper celebration, it's just such a fun, positive festival, and not be able to do that in person was really, really a struggle last year.
So coming back, of course, this year now, you're going to be in person. So what can we expect?
Well, we have a new Bockfest Hall location, which actually works really well for us. We're going to be at Finley Playground up in the heart of the brewery district, just a half a block from Finley Market. We're right on the streetcar, between the streetcar stop and Vine Street. And we've got a lot more outdoor area. And so we'll have a big, huge Bockfest hall tent, but we've got a lot of outdoor area, an outdoor beer garden and food and other activities. So there's a lot of ways to celebrate. If you're not comfortable maybe being crowded in with everybody, you can still come down to Bockfest and stay outside and enjoy all the good things about Bockfest. And we've kept most of our favorites. We kick it off with the parade on Friday night. It's the funkiest parade in the city. I still don't know of anywhere else that does a parade at happy hour on a Friday night. And that's just the tradition we've done. It steps off at 6 o'clock from Arnold's, heads up Main Street, and we'll end up Bockfest Hall. And it's the craziest thing you ever see. And that kicks it off. It's, I tell people it's a parade led by a real goat pulling a keg of beer, a giant Trojan goat, monks, and a sausage queen. So, right there, usually that's where I need to stop selling them. They're like, I'm in, but that's one of the really unique things that Bockfest celebrates. And that kicks off the whole weekend. And so that's really Friday night. We've got a dozen and a half participating bars and restaurants and breweries, our official venues throughout the neighborhood. And there's a lot of music, a lot of beer, of course, a lot of great food. And then on Saturday, again, we've really grown the festival to be, a wide range of activities. There's plenty of beer festivals, but there's really not many festivals that combine, beer and history and culture and food and just ridiculousness like Bockfest does. So we have the Bockfest 5K Saturday morning. We have the Bock beer tasting experience all day Saturday afternoon. We're going to have over 30 local Bock beers, which again is another testament to the return of our brewing tradition here in Cincinnati. And then Sunday, again, we kind of switch gears again from Sausage Queen to very family friendly. We've got goat yoga in the morning. We've got a petting zoo in the afternoon with goats and other farm animals. We've got lots of great music. We're partnering with Cincinnati Recreation Commission this year to have more games. So we'll have some beer games for grown-ups, some games for kids, just a way to really kind of chill. And then to kind of cap it all off, if whether you're exhausted from the 5K, whether you've had a few too many Bock beers over the weekend, you can run the .05K, which is 164 feet. If you can make that, you get your beer and your T-shirt and your bottle opener medal, just like the big kids running the bigger races. So and all that helps kind of support the nonprofit brewery district, which operates Bockfest, and make sure Bockfest is around for future years.
There is something for everyone, literally. So
literally, yeah. I get tired telling people like all these things. It's hard to, people say summarize Bockfest. I'm like, you got to give me a couple minutes. So
you got to like go through the daily schedule in your head to remember everything. But you brought up a good point about not only is this celebrating the brewery heritage, but it is supporting the brewery heritage in Cincinnati. And I know that is a passion project for you. So talk a little bit about the nonprofit that really supports everything that is surrounding not just Bockfest, but the history of brewing in Cincinnati.
Yeah. So I'm the director of the Brewery District Community Urban Redevelopment Corporation. Again, talking a lot. That long name, that's a nonprofit that has been focused on preserving and promoting our brewing heritage to help redevelop and repopulate our neighborhood of the historic brewery district in Cincinnati, which is generally kind of the north half of over the Rhine and the West End, where the vast majority of these pre-prohibition breweries were. And we've been operating Bockfest. I say we're the stewards of Bockfest. We didn't start Bockfest. We're just making sure the tradition goes on for over 15 years now. But we do a lot to, again, celebrate and preserve that history. A lot of kind of planning projects and neighborhood cleanups and all those traditional things. But we're also building and designing the Brewing Heritage Trail, which is a permanent celebration of our brewing history through the neighborhood, with wayfinding medallions set in the sidewalk, permanent signage, public art. There'll be a smartphone app, guided tours. We've been giving guided tours of the history, including like down in the old lagering cellars and old breweries since 2006. And that's something that we do as a way to, again, help preserve and celebrate that history, but also use it to help, bring our neighborhood back. Our neighborhood was neglected for a very long time, and a lot of vacant buildings, and we've seen a lot of growth around that. And just, beer history is a great way to get people's attention and share what's really cool and unique about, the neighborhood that we call home.
And what about the neighborhood? I know that you do want to develop that, and the trail is up and running, and you do see people that are using it. But how is the trail and the tourism that it generates, how is that helping the neighborhood, boosting the neighborhood, really giving the neighborhood an economic impact?
Yeah. So when we started the tours again in 2006, really where a lot of the value was just reintroducing people to a neighborhood that they had neglected or written off, or who they had been told since they were little to don't go to that neighborhood. It's dangerous. It's not safe. There's nothing there. And we found that beer history was a hook. We had so many people, literally tell us, I would have never come down to Over the Rhine, but to get go in an old brewery and an old lagering cellar and learn this history, they literally paid money to come to a neighborhood they said they wouldn't come to. And it was really unique in allowing us to change the perception of the neighborhood. So that was a lot of the early years of just changing that perception and showing people there's value, the people that are here, the buildings that are here, the institutions that are here, the history that's here. And what we really have, continued to work on is, again, why that what we have here is so unique, and it's so valuable to our city that, there's places in America like Charleston or Savannah, or New Orleans or Boston, where people go specifically for the history and the architecture and the culture. And Cincinnati should be on that same list, because we have this amazing wealth of all of that, and we've done a very poor job of capitalizing on that over the years. And so it's a way to, again, not only show why the neighborhood is important, but literally bring dollars to the neighborhood, bring visitors to spend money in the bars and the restaurants. And sometimes those people say, hey, maybe I want to live here, maybe I want to have my business here, and help bring that attention and bring that awareness and showcase why it's important. And again, those hard dollars are important to the redevelop of the neighborhood.
As I mentioned, coming up on the 30th anniversary this year, I guess the first question is, did you ever think it would make it to 30? And what do you see in the next 30? How will this event evolve?
So it's interesting. Yeah, that's something we talk about every year, is that Over the Rhine is not in the same place it was 5, 10, 15, 30 years ago. And that's a good thing. It's a much more healthy and balanced neighborhood. It's not, Bockfest used to be the thing that kept the bar owners, kept their lights on over the winter. That one weekend paid the rent for, a couple months over the winter when it was slow. We don't have that problem anymore. That's a great thing. We don't want to be dependent on that. And so how we continue to interact in the neighborhood as buildings are redeveloped, and, we don't have big old warehouse buildings that are vacant that we can just throw a party in anymore. Again, all very good problems. It just changes how the festival is going to live in the neighborhood. The key thing that we always focus on is it's a festival of the neighborhood. You couldn't take Bockfest and move it somewhere else. It needs to be in the neighborhood in some form or fashion. So we've always continued to involve local businesses, local venues, and that type of stuff. As we move forward in future years, who knows? Things change, locations change. One way or the other, though, I think it'll always be here. That what Bockfest is, and I think the parade's the perfect example, is this. We couldn't create the parade in its current iteration out of whole cloth today if we wanted to, if we were starting a new event. It's the people who come every year and do the crazy floats and dress up and do all that stuff. We just tell people when and where to show up. We don't have a theme. We don't have instructions other than just line up here. And so every year it's like, what's going to happen in this parade? And so as long as we're making sure that people are enjoying themselves and they have that sense of ownership, I think Bockfest will continue to be strong. And wherever it ends up, that's going to be the key piece of it. It's about at its core, it's about the people who are coming out and celebrating and are part of the neighborhood and coming in from out of the neighborhood and celebrating and just love everything about it.
And it's certainly such a big part of the history of Cincinnati, and of course that neighborhood, the Over the Rhine neighborhood. So Steve, once the Bockfest is over, other than taking a nice long nap after the weekend, now what? What do you do after that? What is your vision, and what do you do? What do you take from Bockfest, and of course the money that you raise? Then how do you give that back and really develop the trail and develop the heritage there?
Yeah. So we've the vision for the trail is a little over a 2-mile route through the neighborhood. We've built the first about 3/4 of a mile of the physical trail. We're working on the app to hopefully release that this summer. But we still got a lot of fundraising. It's about a $5 million project, and so we've still got fundraising to do to build the next segment. The next segments, but we continue to offer guided tours and of various options to, again, bring people down here and share. We're really, as we're coming out of COVID here, we're really building up our other programming. And so really building a more rich and deep kind of series of events. So if you've been on a tour before, what else can we do to share more history with you, whether it's speaker series or tastings or other unique opportunities, or maybe a brewery that's never been on a tour before. So we're really starting to build, again, a much richer experience with all the history, again, to preserve and share more of it. And, thankfully we've got more partners, more breweries and bars and restaurants are opening up in the neighborhood. So you'll see us partnering a lot more with those in 2022 and beyond, which is just great. Again, when we started this, there weren't really any breweries in Over the Rhine, and so we're very thankful they're back. And it's nice to not just talk about past history with brewing history. The fact that it's also, you can talk about brewing history from 100 years ago and then walk into a brewery and have a beer that was made a week ago, the fresh beer made by the people that you can talk to. So it's really unique that we can kind of tie all that stuff together, and that's where we're really going to continue to build upon.
Well, the Flying Pig and Pigworks, so thrilled to be able to partner with you for Bockfest 5K over Bockfest weekend. And if you have not signed up, you can do that. RunBeerSeries.com. There is still time to be part of the Bockfest 5K. And in fact, the entire Bockfest experience, stick around. We always say, do the run and stick around for the party. Or sometimes the party starts even before the run too, which is fine. I think all the rules are thrown out when it comes to celebrating Bockfest. Steve Hampton, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Best of luck for Bockfest weekend, and we are so thrilled that Bockfest is back for the 30th year.
Thanks, Betsy.